I felt no pressure, and then I opened my eyes and there was a camera. Because, in my head, when I'm chanting, I think I sound pretty good. Then when I listen to it, I play it back, oh, God, it's terrible. It's awful. It's not...
Well, we're not cameras. We think it sounds good.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's... I think when I'm sitting, but when I hear it, it's like, it's not what I think.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
I know inside the head, the voice seems resonant.
Yeah, it sounds almost angelic even, I sound like an Irish tenor or something. No, I'm not. I'm singing off key, like some Long Island.
I'm sorry, is they recording this too?
Yeah, and everything is being recorded. This is what I want to talk about, the supreme absolute truth. The last leg of religion is truth. I've been doing this in-depth analysis on truth, and it's really quite fascinating. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Chaivam Narottamam. Deving Saraswati Vyasam.
Deving Saraswati Vyasam.
Tatam Jayamudiriye.
Tatam Jayamudiriye.
Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should first offer our respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and to Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vichari Nivesesha Sunnavadi Paskata Om Agyanta Barandasya Gyanandana Salaya Chakshorum Mitantam Tasmai Shri. So today's verse is text 12 of chapter 17, Canto 1, the punishment and reward of Kali. The first word is ko. Vrishchat. Tava. Padam. Trin. Ko vrishchat. Ko vrishchat. Tava. Padam. Trin.
Ko vrishchat. Tava. Padam. Trin.
Saurabdeya. Chatus. Pada. Saurabdeya Chatus Pada. Ma. Bhuvams. Patrisha. Rastre. Mam Bhuvams. Patrisha. Rastre. Ragnam. Krishna. It's an answer. And it's actually, in the word it's two words, so I'll do it like that. So then it's Anuvartinam. So together it's Krishna Anuvartinam. I'm finally slowly starting to understand that then when you have two A's like that, there's the long A. You just say Krishna Anuvartinam. The penny is dropping after all the years. Ko vrishchat tava padam stren. Saurabheya chatuspada. Ma bhuvams tvadrisha rastre. Ragna Krishna Nuvartinam. Ko vrishchat tava padam stren. Saurabheya Chatuspada Ma Bhuvam Svadrisharastre Ragnam Krishna Nuvartinam Ko Vrishchatavapadam Trin Saurupeya Chatuspada Ma Bhuvam Svadrisharastre Ragnam Krishna Nuvartinam
Ko Vrishchatavapadam Strin Charaviya Chatuspada Ma Bhuvam
Svadrisharastre
Rajnam Krishna Nuvartinam Ko Vrishatava Padam Strin Saurabhya Chatuspada Ma Bhuvam Stadrisharastre Ragyam Krishnanuvartinam
Ko Vishtvatavapadam Strin Sarvadeya Chatuspada Ma Bhuvam Svadrisharastre Rajnam Krishna Nuvartinam
Someone else?
Go Vrishchatavapadam String.
Vrishchatavapadam String.
Saurveya Chatuspada.
Mahubam Svadrisharastre.
Ragyam Krishna Nuvartinam.
Ko Vrishchatavapadam String.
Sarvadeya Chatuspada Bhagavatam
Rajnam Krishna Nuvartinam. So, okay, word for word. Ka. Who is he? It's not. It's ko in the verse, but in the word for word, it's K-A-H.
Yeah.
Ka. So we'll learn something else.
Yeah.
Because the next word is avishchat. So there's two ways. So just like with the Krishna Nuvartinam, so they drop the A. Okay. So avishchat means cut off. Tava, your. Padan, legs. Trin, three. Saurabeya, O son of Surabi. Chatupada, you are four-legged. Ma, never to be. Bhuvan, it so happened. Vadrisha, as yourself. Rastre, in the state. Ragnam, of the kings. Krishna, Anuvartinam, those who follow the codes of Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I'll say and then you can repeat. He, Maharaj Pariksit, repeatedly addressed and questioned the bull thus. O son of Surabi, who has cut off your 3 legs? In the state of the kings, who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, there is no one as unhappy as you. He, Maharaj Pariksit, repeatedly addressed and questioned the bull thus. O son of Surabi, who has cut off your 3 legs? In the state of the kings, who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, there is no one as unhappy as you. Purport. The kings, or the executive heads of all states, must know the codes of Lord Krishna. And this is in parentheses, generally Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And must act accordingly in order to fulfill the mission of human life, which is to make an end to all miseries of material conditions. One who knows the codes of Lord Krishna can achieve this end without any difficulty. In the Bhagavad Gita, in a synopsis, we can understand the codes of Godhead, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the same codes are explained further. In a state where the codes of Krishna are followed, no one is unhappy. Where such codes are not followed, the first sign is that 3 legs of the representative of religion are cut off, and thereby all miseries follow. When Krishna was personally present, the codes of Krishna were being followed without question. But in his absence, such codes are presented in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam for the guidance of the blind persons who happen to be at the helm of all affairs. I was surprised. I thought he was going to say us, but he meant the leaders. The blind persons are the leaders, and we're the blind following the blind. So the verse again is, he, Maharaj Pariksit, repeatedly addressed and questioned the bull thus, O son of Surabi, who has cut off your 3 legs? In the state of the kings who are obedient to the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, there is no one as unhappy as you. So, this is a discussion of what is, for lack of a better word, religion. But because religion, as Prabhupada oftentimes said, doesn't adequately, the English words don't necessarily adequately describe what we're discussing. We're discussing here the actual Sanatana Dharma, or our eternal constitutional nature and position, which is that we are all eternally cooperative, subordinate servants of the servants. And this human form of life is the rare opportunity to put an end to this ridiculous madness of going from one life, one type of body to another, to try to find happiness separately from Krishna. Actually, I wasn't thinking about doing this, but I just thought of it. Maybe I should. But anyway, there was a song written back in the 30s or 40s. It was in a movie called Going My Way, and it's called The Mule, and the chorus goes, and it's kind of interesting that this was being sung in the 40s as a very popular song, and it's being sung by a Catholic priest in this particular movie.
Bing Crosby, right?
Yeah, Bing Crosby. You've seen that?
Yeah, several times.
So the chorus goes, would you like to swing on a star, bringing moonbeams home in a jar? Or would you be better off than you are? Or would you rather be a mule? And then it says a mule is an animal with long hanging ears and picks up on everything here, and he has a back for burden, beast of burden, and then it goes, oh, would you like this one? And then it says, oh, would you like to be a pig? I mean, it's actually this Prabhupada saying hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. In this song, it's, asses, a mule, and the pigs, and then they go to fish and monkeys. And then it describes their lives as being less than human, less than what is, our real constitutional nature. But he says, but you can be better off than you are. You could be swinging on a star. You could be going back to Godhead. It's actually, it's very interesting that how this subconsciously fits into our social, even when there was no transcendence, really. I mean, but so, when you think about it, it's Krishna sneaking in there, and they're actually describing reincarnation, and that if you don't use your human form of life properly, you'll take birth as a mule, a pig, a fish, a monkey, or you can actually go back beyond the stars.
Do you have all the words there?
I do. I actually do. Yeah. I wrote it all out one day, but I realized that I was writing so fast because I was listening to it on YouTube that it was hard for me to. So I made some mistakes, but yeah, you can.
You have a website with lyrics too.
Yeah.
Maybe you can look it up from.
Yeah. It's and I can. But anyway, but the descriptions of the mule is that he's a beast of burden, and that he has a stubborn streak, and that his brain is very weak, and then he's very stupid, and that also a pig is always dirty, his face is dirty, and he eats up everything he sees. He has bad manners. He's a terrible disgrace. And a fish is foolish, swimming around, going after shiny things, which end up getting him caught, like that. And then the monkeys are foolishly playing around in zoos. Or you can go and swing on a star and be better off than you are. And in the whole movie, there's always these social situations that are really difficult. What should we do, Father? What should we do? And, we don't have enough money to pay this mortgage off, or we have this problem. He says, well, I don't know about that. And I don't know about what the solution to that is, but he sits down at the piano and says, but I do know that song. And then he starts going, would you like to sing? Everything is solved by singing a song together. And this song is about reincarnation. The whole movie is like that. I saw it many times. This is something an Irish Catholic must watch. It's part of your tradition. So, anyway, but anyway, so why did I go that way? But in any case, so the truth is that the human form of life is meant for finding out who we are, what this material world is, where did it come from, who created it, why am I here, and what's my relationship to it and to everyone else, and what's my relationship to the Creator. That's what we're supposed to find out. And so, in other words, the human form of life is a search for the truth. And so, but I was meditating on what is the truth, because there's different. First, I was questioning, this what seems to be moral truth, and then there's the relative or absolute truth. But then, so in other words, what moral truth would be: did you take a nickel out of mommy's purse to go buy a candy bar? And then the moral, well, yeah, you stole it. You took some money, like that. In other words, thou shalt not lie. So that seems like it's a different meaning than the truth of existence. But I was realizing this morning while checking my rounds that it dawned on me that truth is God. that when we say, are you telling the truth? You tell the truth because the truth, God, is your witness. He's within your heart. And He is the supreme truth. And actually, in the Bhagavad Gita, I was wondering about this morning, but there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna says, Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Sasvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vivam. It's actually another verse after that, but he says, Arjuna said, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. And in the translation, in the word for word, Prabhupada translates Param Brahma as supreme truth. And that's a name for Krishna. He's the supreme truth. And He is the absolute truth, as opposed to a relative truth. So, in the Bhagavatam, we're talking about religion and religious principles, or the codes of God, but we're not talking about Hinduism, or Christianity, or Judaism. It's not a sectarian religion. It is the actual universal codes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Creator, and how to act in such a way that everything is harmonious and everyone can become happy in this life and the next. So we are not talking some sectarian religion. And it actually talks about in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam that the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to kick out all other kinds of religions and to establish the truth. So we're not interested in making people Hindus or converting them to some religious sect or argue with them whether this path is better than that path. But what the Bhagavatam is trying to present is the absolute truth. What is the truth? The truth is that there is a God. He has many names, and you can learn about Him from the spiritual master. And it actually says, again in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 4, text 34, Tadvidi pranipaptena parisparsena sevaya upadakshanti te dhyanam gyaninas tattvadarshana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. There's being true, and then there's learn the truth, and you can see the truth. So, but there's no difference between that. And, like there's a quote from Shakespeare, it says, where did I have it written down? I know part of it, but I want to get the whole thing. So it's right. Yes. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day. Thou canst not thou be false to any man. And there's many interpretations of what that means, but it generally means what most people seem to think it means, that you yourself, you should take care of yourself. But I don't see it in that light. I see it that we must be true. We must be introspective, not retrospective, but introspective. We must be honest with ourselves to see what are our habits, what work we need to do, and am I practicing properly in order to achieve the goal of establishing my relationship with the Supreme Absolute Truth. So The other three legs, I'll go back to that. I'm sort of jumped ahead of myself here. The other three legs are austerity, cleanliness, and illicit sex life. Well, the other three legs are austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. And cleanliness is connected to illicit sex life. And, that's external. Cleanliness is external, like, keeping the temple clean, keeping your own physical self clean, your clothes clean. But there's also the internal cleanliness. I remember as a kid they used to say, don't have dirty thoughts. But dirty thoughts can also be...
Dirty what?
Dirty thoughts.
Oh, okay.
Don't think dirty thoughts. Fortunately, in this life, in other ages, you're responsible for what you think. In this age, you're only responsible for what you do or what you say. But dirty thoughts can also mean thinking bad of others. And in that, if you actually meditate on something or someone, or even it's not a person, but it's a fault. You see a type of fault that you find distasteful. You can become that by the meditation. You become what you think. What you meditate on is what you become. So that's why in our process we meditate on the sound vibration of Krishna. Not that we become Krishna, but we become Krishna-like, or Krishna-like, particle, a tiny particle of Krishna. We meditate on the deities, the forms of the Lord. We meditate on the philosophy presented in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we meditate on these qualities, his qualities and the qualities of a devotee. That's described in the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam. And the great sages, we meditate on them. And hopefully we become like them. If one finds themselves meditating so much on something. There's the example of Bharat Maharaj. He was so concerned about this poor fawn, a baby deer. He was always meditating on the deer and forgot his proper doing his sadhana. That then at the time of death he was thinking of the deer. Now this was an extreme case, but it's meant to teach us that what you think of at the time of death that's the state of mind at the time of death determines your next life. So we need to practice in this life meditating on what's good. We need to meditate on the truth. And meditating on the truth also means being truthful. We swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. That's what Prabhupada appreciated about America. That in America we accept the fact that God is our witness. And that we, on our money, because he said, after all, they took away your gold and now they're giving you a piece of paper. So they better write down, in God we trust. So we have trust in God that these are honest men. And that this piece of paper is worth what they say. Now it's become very, very abstract. It's no longer a gold standard. But in all cases, but that meditation is also, that's where austerity comes in. Austerity is linked to meat eating, but austerity is that it's not easy to get up early in the morning. And sometimes in the cold weather, sometimes it's very hot, sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's snowing, to get up and come and see the deities in the morning. It's not easy to cook in the kitchen when it's hot. It's not easy to go out and work and do some kind of work that you have to do outdoors in the cold. So that's the austerity, but we continue to perform those austerities. Then, in the Bhagavad Gita it describes austerity of speech, austerity of action and thoughts. It's all described there. And so Krishna explains to us how to properly perform these practices so that we can achieve the truth. And then, the cleanliness is external, internal, austerity, and then mercy. To be merciful. And there's a quote again from Shakespeare that very nicely describes the quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth from the heaven like the rain. It is twice blessed. It blesseth those who give it and those who receive it. So this quality of mercy, and we even say in our prayer, isn't part of the prayer in the morning, Prabhupada is an ocean of mercy? Yes. He has mercifully come and given us this opportunity to understand the truth, so we can actually live a truthful life and be to our own selves be true. And there's a line from a movie from a few years ago in pop culture. I have a lot of pop culture references today, but there's this one famous line where he says, "You want to know the truth? You can't handle the truth." Yeah, well, whatever. But his character says that. And the truth is that this civilization is dragging people to the lower forms of life, is dragging people to a hellish condition. The leaders, because they're so blind, I'm not saying they're consciously doing it, but they've been misled or misinformed, or haven't been made an attempt to become informed of what is the truth. And they are telling us that the basic point of the human form of life is to make a lot of money, to buy a lot of toys with that, and pay your taxes, and, have a family, but then if you don't like that family, you can change and have another family, There's a lot of relative truths. There's no more absolute truths. They can change the truth by just voting a law, which is actually, it may be true in our society, but is it true in the universe? Is it true to God? How does He think? What does He think? And, yes?
I don't know if this is the right place to jump in and say this. I mean, I've, having been raised a Catholic, sometimes I'm trying to fit them together because, like Christ says, it is appointed. It is appointed that a man must die once, and it came to me that it means you shouldn't be. He's telling you should just die once and go back to Godhead. You shouldn't be going through several births. It is appointed, meaning it is decreed, or that's the idea that. But they I can't say it with you know what I mean. They cover up the truth, or like you said, sometimes they don't even know they're wrong, or they don't know how it is that they're teaching people wrongly about their own faith. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, you make sense. That doesn't mean, when you started off with the question, it seemed as if you were saying that somehow or other what Krishna consciousness is teaching somehow that conflicts with that statement of Jesus Christ.
I thought it did.
Well,
I thought it did until I really analyzed what Christ meant. You aren't meant to keep on this samsara, this real.
That's because now you've gotten more, like as Jesus Christ also said, there's much more for you to be taught,
Right.
you're not prepared to hear it.
Yeah.
And now Srila Prabhupada has come and given us more complete picture of what is true and what is false. There's some really amazing quotes all throughout, and I was on Wikipedia, and there's some very interesting quotes. Because, you know, like I said, you can't handle the truth. The truth is, if you know, like if you see somebody who's doesn't notice he's talking, and he's about to walk down a manhole, or he's about to walk right in front of a truck, wouldn't you yell out and try to stop them from doing it? Well, we know that these people that are, engaging in, illicit sex life, meat eating, and intoxication, this is degrading their existence for millions and millions and millions of lifetimes. We know that. We have been convinced of it, and we've been proven. It's been proven to us through the Shastra, through the Gurus, and through the Sadhus. It's all supported. It's not a sectarian religion. This is teaching us. The bull represents Dharma, which is not religion. It is the constitutional position of the living entity and how to re-establish that position. Like right now, everybody, and the one thing that's still our saving grace in this country, even truth is destroyed by gambling, and that doesn't just mean, playing roulette or blackjack or something. It also means the stock market, that's a big gambling den. And then lying propaganda. Now, Vaishyas are given some license to say, for you, I'm not making any profit. But they have taken that to the far extreme. They know that products they're selling can be harmful to people's health. And yet they say it's healthy. There used to be commercials where it said, 9 out of 10 doctors say smoking a cigarette really relaxes you. It's very healthy for us.
Just a few.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just a few.
I remember one specific show, I Love Lucy. They used to regularly. That was a commercial. These are things that you can see on. You go down the rabbit holes in YouTube, you'll see these things. But you can also see what we were raised on in the early 50s. Before there was Count Dracula and Cocoa Puffs and all this Lucky Charms. These breakfast cereals that are just poison.
Yeah.
They were selling Quaker Oats. This was, and shredded wheat. Very healthy, very inexpensive. They cared about doing virtuous things on the television. And the original shows were almost like morality plays. Gradually, they realized how much they can make more money. But the man that came up with the concept of planned obsolescence is practically worshipped in this country. They think he's a genius. They used to make things that lasted, and they were concerned about giving their children the proper example and the proper diet. Of course, they were meat eaters, but you can still see there was then I was just went because I was doing research and I started wanting to see these things, and so there was this character whose name was Gabby Hayes. Anybody old enough to remember Gabby Hayes?
Cowboy, the cowboy.
Yeah. And so he.
This was Roy Rogers.
It's anyway. He would regularly have something where today is or tomorrow is going to be Father's Day, and why don't we make every day Father's Day? Just like when I was telling you about Mother's Day. In other words, it says to respect, in the Ten Commandments, to respect your parents. Respect your mother and your father. They were showing that being truthful, not being a liar, was a good thing. That was the right thing to do. You know, what was it? I think it was Superman, something, truth in the American way.
Justice.
Truth, justice in the American way. You know, that truth. So we respect truth in this country. And that's why we have this big debate going on right now. I don't want to get into the whole sort of details of it. But we want to know, who's telling the truth? What is the truth? And it's very interesting because I remembered just recently while doing this that one of the first times I'd been, for about a year I was, every day I'd get off work and there was the kirtan party and I'd stand and listen and I'd talk to the devotees, walk away and chant. And then I got a Bhagavad Gita. Then I got dragged to a Sunday feast, and it happened to be a wedding, Gopal Krishna's wedding, Gopal Krishna Maharaj. And let me tell you something. When he was a Grahasta, he was an ideal Grahasta. I saw him when I joined in Brooklyn. He lived there, and his schedule was so popular. He was that's why he's such an ideal devotee today. He showed what it meant to be a Grahasta. So I just happened to be there at his wedding. But then later on, I went to San Francisco, and so many things different happened, almost like miracles, all that. But I was having this conversation after doing Harinam all day with the devotees in San Francisco. I actually crossed the line and started doing chanting with them. And I'm sitting in a book room with this other person who is not a full-time devotee, and the devotees just kind of forgot about us, And I always remembered that later because I was at that point probably I would have moved in, but they kind of ignored us and they went about their business, and then he and I got into a conversation and we went off and did some nonsense. But I remember specifically saying, "I'm interested in this because I want to find out when someone's telling me the truth." I thought, well, that's interesting. But I was thinking maybe he's really been hurt, lied to by someone like a woman or a parent or something. I don't. But I thought, I knew enough about the devotees, and from my discussions with people like Satyarupa Maharaj, and he was a Grahasta though at the time, and reading the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's Gita, I knew that they have there's a lot more to their philosophy than just knowing if someone's telling you the truth. But that is important to know how someone's telling you the truth. And they have lie detector tests, and then they have people that study your body language, and on like that. But ultimately, the truth, Krishna is the witness. And if someone is truly devoted to God and is aware that God is within your heart, you have to be truthful. But the fear is, like in Catholicism, they have this process of confession, where you go to the priest because people make mistakes, and so they want their conscience bothers. Yeah, and conscience is a good thing because it's just like pain. If I don't experience pain and I have my finger on something hot, I might burn my finger really badly, but because I experience pain, and there are people that may be, numb in certain parts of their bodies, and then they may actually do some severe damage to themselves because they're not experiencing the pain. So a conscience, and there was even a character in our modern pop culture that told us, a little cricket told us that, there was, conscience is listen to your conscience. Don't surrender to your lower nature. And be introspective. And that's a part of our process, to be introspective and to be willing to express someone you trust, I'm having this difficulty, instead of pretending. I mean, because how does anyone know that this person has chanted 16 rounds? How does anybody know that they're having some problem with There was one devotee that his biggest problem was that he wanted to go play billiards. That was his big worry. And he came to Jagataka Maharaj. And we're sitting, we think it was going to be something really, like he needed to get married or something. He's saying, you know, I just want to go play pool. Can't I just go play pool? And Maharaj said, well, but, you know, it's a place where people are smoking and drinking and gambling. He goes, I know, but I just like the game of pool. Is there anything wrong with that? You know, this is the kind of thing, you know, I can't remember what he did, but it was brilliant. It was a brilliant solution to his problem. So,
he probably took a tool from somewhere. I mean, the whole thing and brought it in a temple and played there.
No. But he satisfied him for many years. He was a very nice devotee. Because he was preaching for Prabhupada, Maharaj was preaching. Krishna gave him the intelligence on how to satisfy his, to dovetail in some way. I can't remember exactly, but Krishna provides you with the intelligence. So, you know, we have to be honest with ourselves because you know, there's 4 defects. We have imperfect senses. We have a tendency to be cheated or to cheat. We have a tendency to make mistakes. And what's the other one? Oh, we're illusioned. We're illusioned. Sometimes I see something, I think I see something, I think that's a water down the road there, and I swear there's a pool of water down the road. When I get there, it's not there. So we can become illusioned. And sometimes I think, by looking at something, that I look at somebody, say sometimes around Sankirtan, and in the parking lot, and I'd see this couple, and I think they're happy. There's happiness there. But then you find out actually they're about to get divorced, or they're cheating on each other, and they hate. You know, it's not. There's, you know, you think it looks like happiness. You know, so we get illusioned. So, and when we make mistakes, we have to be. Error is human. Everyone makes mistakes. And in this process of bhakti yoga, the expression is we're all in the shower. You know, so we're cleaning ourselves. So in that process, things come up. The impurities rise up, like when you're boiling the butter, the impurities rise and you get the ghee. So we make mistakes. But we have to be willing to admit, I made a mistake. And to be humble enough. And then to come and ask for forgiveness. If you can't do that, your spiritual life will wither. It will die. And Prabhupada said that our test, after he left, that to prove that you love me, you will learn how to cooperate. One thing is, I heard recently on one of the memories tape, that Prabhupada said one way to learn how to cooperate is to go to Guru Puja together. And worship the spiritual master together. Or at least the founder Acharya. But, you know, disciples of other gurus, of Prabhupada's disciples, they can also do a Guru Puja, at least weekly, if not daily, and depending on the size of the community. So, these are the things that I've been sort of meditating on. There's a lot more. I mean, there's some really amazing, beautiful quotes about the truth from, if you go on Wikipedia, there's actually 903. I wrote down a few of them. But I think I've run out of my time here, so I just think I'll end here, and then you want any comments or questions, please feel free. Yes?
Yeah, earlier when you first began talking, you said that in this age we don't have to be concerned about our thoughts. Is that just something for the Kali Yuga age, one of our many mercies?
Well, yes, that is. But I would also say, though, having said that, you should be concerned that if you obsess over something, it will lead you to doing something. You're thinking, feeling, willing. But if you think about an act that's not according to the regular principles, you don't get a reaction. But eventually, it may lead to that. But in other ages, if you think something bad about someone, or you think something sinful to do, you get the same reaction as actually having done it. So we are very fortunate because, I don't know about you, but my mind is all over the place. I mean, I don't know where some of these thoughts come from. Yes?
I think what it is that you will be attacked with these thoughts, by Maya. But the sin comes in when you entertain them too long.
Well, if you entertain them too long,
they're going to sort of attack you, and then you just, I don't want to think about that when you chant Hare Krishna here or
right.
something. But it's the just sort of entertain them a little too long.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm having trouble with my mind, that was a question I used to hear all the time. Daughters would come in and I'd say, I'm really having trouble with my mind, and it would be on certain things. And that was generally like a brahmachari or a brahmacharini who felt the need to change ashrams. I'm having trouble with my mind. And another thing is, here's the thing is, we all made a decision to break our ties with quote-unquote mainstream culture, which meant, not in all cases, like Cara's very fortunate, her father's been here. I just had the good fortune to meet him. Unfortunately, I should have stayed and talked to him longer, but I needed to finish doing what I was doing. But he's really favorable. But not everybody's parents were favorable. As a matter of fact, they were very unfavorable. And so for most of us, we've broken our ties from our friends, our family, and people think that we're too good. Like, come on, let's go have a drink. Come on, let's get high. Let's go, this, do that. No, but then they think you're just too goodish. Why don't you eat? I remember once I was with my son, and I don't know, he was probably about 12 or so, or 9 or 10. I can't remember. And at my parents' house, and my parents were convinced that we needed to eat meat. And meanwhile, my son's like 6'3". He's like really super, big and strong. But they were going, this is the best lamb chops I've ever tasted. And they're going on and on about it. And we're like, looking at each other like, okay, all right, glad you're enjoying it. But we're happy with our macaroni and cheese over here, okay? Which probably wasn't so good for my arteries, but but at least it wasn't lamb chops. But they would just go, every bite they were going, this is the... If they can't get me, maybe they get my son, But one time, I think he was about 3 or 4, and he was really attached to the cows out of Marari. But we lived in Atlanta, especially the baby calves, the calves. And we used to play like we were cows, like go walk around like that on all fours. And so then one day his mother explained to him what was going on in this one counter, this one case, and that was like one of the cows, like that. Because then just all of a sudden he gets to the front where we're about to pay for something. I wasn't there; she was there. So he says to the woman behind the counter, "Why do you kill the cows? How can you do that?" Out of the mouth of babes. And the woman's like, "What? I can kill a cow?" He's going, what? He's really like interrogating. Well, what's that? You're going to eat that?
That was for Doris?
Yeah. It was amazing. He still is, but got distracted. But what else? Yeah.
If you're done.
I don't remember what I was talking about, so go ahead.
So you're talking about eternal absolute truth and relative truth,
Yeah.
and brought up about Christianity. So I also was Christian. I was a Catholic and adult convert, and so I, tried to understand it. And Christianity, it took me years to sort it out too. Christianity and Christian consciousness do fit together, but not as equals. Because Christianity is lower, and I finally understand one point is that this idea that Jesus has to die for your sins, there has to be bloodshed for sins, so Jesus did it, is a karma idea. And it assumes that somehow God can't rise over the law of karma.
Yeah.
So he has to send his son to shed blood. And actually, we understand that that's not true.
Right.
So that's a religion about, it's actually a religion about karma, but I don't think that's what Jesus was teaching.
No.
But he could only give so much. But then they made it into a law, a religion of karma. So it fits, but not as equals.
Well, I would, instead of trying to put them, to be fair to them, it's like, because you have to learn elementary math first, and then get to the next step, so it's equal in that sense that, 2 plus 2 is 4.
Well, karma is true in both places.
So, but, having said that, like, in this conversation with that young man, Art, he's 40-something, on Sunday. Now, he studied to be a monk for 2 years, and we were having this conversation about the crucifix, and he told me that actually that's a recent, within the last 500 years, that the initial Christians, the main image of Jesus was Jesus carrying a lamb. He was carrying his flock on his shoulders. Then it evolved to the resurrection on the cross like this, like Lord Chaitanya, which Colleen has one of those, a small one, like Lord Chaitanya, he's up like this. The hospital where they did my heart surgery, St. Mary's in Nashville, every room had like this. And then an interesting, the reason why he mentioned that to me was, he said somewhere 500 years ago, it became this, gore, sort of.
On the cross.
Yeah. And I can't remember the reason he gave, but because I was telling him that my wife at one point when we used to live here before was, becoming more involved over there, and so we wanted to, we every now and then like to get married again. She wants to make sure it's sealed. We got married legally in the temple. Then she wanted to do it in the church. And I said, I'll do it, but not in front of a crucifix. So she told the priest that, and the priest gave her some quote that that meant I was from Satan. Only someone from Satan would say something like that. So then I told her, you go tell the priest this, that I consider Jesus Christ my Guru. And I don't want to see him suffering because of my actions. I want to take him off the cross. And so she went and told him that. And this man, now he's a retired priest. I think he still lives here in town. And he, like I went to see him, he had been transferred during Katrina over to the kiln. And I was going down to the coast with Prabhu and others to distribute prasadam. I asked if we could stop by his church. And I see him up on he's standing on a platform stage. I didn't see over here that he's in front he's having a mass. I couldn't see the people by the angle. There was something in my way. And so he was in the middle of doing a service, but when he saw me, he stopped the service, he ran down off the stage, hugged me, brought me up on the stage, and introduced me as a Hare Krishna, and that these people are good. Because he appreciated that view that that we don't want to see Jesus suffer. For us, we want to be sinless. Now, a lot of different kinds of Christianity says that's not possible. And, it is hard. It's not easy. But The process of, because there's a saying, it's so good, it must be sinful. But actually, chanting Hare Krishna is not sinful, and it's really good. And you know what else? Prasadam, foodstuffs offered, vegetarian foodstuffs offered to the Lord and cooked with love and devotion is even better. Or, it's really good too. Like nice cold sweet rice, and, like that. So, Prabhupada always said this is positive renunciation. You give up the lower taste by the higher taste. And that's how you're able to, but you have to be engaged in the process. You can't just do it half-heartedly. You have to be actually engaged in the process. And that is where the trick, that's the austerity, because it isn't easy to be steady. You have to pray for the determination and strength. And of course you also may have health issues, and so on and so forth. Like somebody said recently, well, I don't want to be, or I'm not appreciated. Okay, well, but Krishna appreciates you. Prabhupada appreciates you. They're always smiling at us. So why stop? Who are you punishing? I mean, you or the deities? Why stop coming to see the deities? It's just a point. I'm not trying to make someone uncomfortable. I'm just saying, if someone thought like that we should never think that even if you're in some social situation and it does become difficult living in the community, because this is the point I was making. Yes. So we've cut ourselves off from mainstream society, and we've entered the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And generally, when a devotee first joins, everyone's ecstatic. Wow, they're joining. Yeah, great. Welcome abroad. And then it doesn't take long before people start saying, I really don't like the way that person chants in the morning. He's really bothering me. And so, we're all we got. You can't go back. Even if you were to leave and try to read, well, where have you been for the last so many years? Well, I remember when I went to apply for a job after, no, they were looking at my, I was trying to get a loan for the house. And I was working with the devotees, and I was still chanting and reading, had deities at home. But they were looking at my credit record, and you can see when I was in high school, I had a couple of part-time jobs, and then you just see nothing but zeros. So it's either I was in the service or I was in jail. No, I said, well, I was a monk. And then, there are actually, there's a very famous movie from the 30s. It's Charles Bourdieu and Marlene Dietrich. It's called In the Garden of Allah. And it deals with a defrocked monk. He's not actually defrocked, he bloops from the monastery. And she falls in love with him, but he's sort of reserved and he wants to, but then he's holding back. And she senses there's some secret that he's not telling her. And then when he tells her that he's taken his vows and he's left the monk, he stopped being a monk and left the monastery, she's like, no, I love you, but you must go back. I can't be with you. And then the end of the movie is she drives him back to the monastery. You've made a vow to God. It's one thing if you left your wife or something, but to leave God, no. That's the way people used to think. Times have changed.
Yeah, but you can say like that, but what about all the corruption that was going on behind the scenes? So it wasn't that everybody was...
No, but at least
it wasn't like everybody had pure mentality.
Could you make a movie like that now? Could you make a movie like that now
No, yeah, maybe you get a few do-goodies going to it.
No, this was a popular movie. This was a very popular movie. So, and in that sense also here, the woman, she feels it's her responsibility not to encourage him. She sends him back. And so it's a completely different view of today's our approach towards things in our society. So I mean, but there's of course that there was a lot of corruption then, and there's I'm just pointing out that socially things are deteriorating. The values that we grew up with in the 50s, like my parents used to say all the time, this isn't our world anymore. And, I never understood it, but gradually I see where certain things are being accepted as the norm. And I'm thinking, I don't get this. I don't see how you can think this is good. These are different, So, to each his own, one man's food is another man's poison. But there are absolute truths. And even though it may be popular now to think certain ways, doesn't mean make it right. And we have to stick to our guns. There's a plug for the second
Well, I don't know if that would work very well in society, sticking to guns.
Yeah, no, I mean it's just an expression. We have to stick to our own convictions. Yeah, our own convictions. Not be swayed by popular. Anyway, so anything else? I think it's time. Way past the time. So I heard someone say that one time a devotee went into Prabhupada and said, this devotee didn't give a very good class. And went on to explain why, and Prabhupada listened, and he said, well, how long did the class last? And he said, no, about 20 minutes. He said, well, at least you got that right. He didn't talk too much.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so I can't see you from there.
I know, good Bill there.
Yeah.
When we were talking about Jesus,
Yeah.
and what came to my mind, I read these little books, and a devotee was saying that sometimes the questions asked, like when Jesus was on Mount Sinai, why didn't he talk about Krishna, or that certain aspect of God? And Prabhupada was making the point that they can't even follow that main commandment, the commandment, thou shalt not kill. So Jesus decided just to be quiet, not say anything else after that. So that kind of thing.
Time, place, and circumstance.
Yeah.
And I was finding myself, when I was doing this meter reading job, I would get into conversations with people, and I could only take, because I'm working for this company, and I got back, and I never know. It was going really well, and it was sort of a metaphysical discussion, but I could only take it so far, without getting into, like, well, here's the Bhagavad Gita, and this will solve all your answers. Because then I needed this job for a few more years, so I can get enough units so I can collect a little bit of Social Security. So, but I, spoke the philosophy without saying Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. I gave examples in that way. So it's a question of time, place, and circumstance. If I had more faith, maybe in a stronger preacher, I would have been more bold. But
And you would have said to become a minister and not a meter reader.
Yeah, exactly. But I had a goal in mind. I had a wife to support, and so I wanted to reach that goal, and that's why I acted the way I did. Like that. Okay.
Can you all say Hare Krishna for...
Oh yes. Thank you very much.
He's going
Going
off
to be on trial
something
for an accident, driving a truck, and it's very serious. And if you can all just please chant Hare Krishna in front of the deities and hope that he gets a fair and merciful judge. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,